You're watching the New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at-scale software. For more information and articles about at-scale technologies, please visit thenewstack.io. Now enjoy the show.
IBM helps organizations cut through IT operations complexity with an automation strategy that seamlessly connects applications and systems with AI-powered, API-driven automation, delivering dynamic, scalable, and intelligent system integrations through unified experience.
All right, we're back with Thanos, and that's not a joke.
No.
How annoying is it to have that name?
Yeah. When I first came to the US, people were asking if it's a real name, so it was pretty annoying. Then with the movies and everything, it became more common, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, Thanos, still here.
Thank you for having
Martin,
us.
thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so we're going to talk today about from pilot to production, about AI and AI agents, getting that actually to work in the real world scenario. You're both with IBM, obviously, and your focus is on observability. But
Correct.
just to get started, like, what are you seeing? What are some of the problems that people run into with these to go from pilot to productions? Where are the roadblocks still today?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, it's fairly new for everyone, right? Let's be honest. Everybody's testing. Everybody's trying to figure out what is going on and how they can actually implement it. What we're seeing with our clients is as soon as they start to put applications into production, that's where the need for observability becomes more important. Before that, I think data teams, because they are responsible for the models, they are more siloed and they're doing their own thing. And as soon as it hits production, that's where ops, DevOps comes in. And that's where we come in, because usually we're on that side of the house. And then that's where they start asking questions. Okay, can you support Bedrock, for example? We're here at AWS, of course, right? Can you support SageMaker? Can we see, what's going on within the model? Can we see what's going on around, the different calls that our model is making, and so on and so forth. So unfortunately, it's an afterthought at this point, which makes our life a little bit harder to be able to showcase our value, because when the stakes are really high, yes, you do want to show your value, but this is such a new thing that it's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like if somebody asks you, can you tell me what's happening inside of the model?
Exactly, yeah.
What do you even tell them when they ask that?
Right. So actually measuring that is an actual challenge for everyone. A lot of the measurements actually also happen taking some human feedback on behalf of just measuring KPIs that we can automate. So depending on the type of problem, you will also have different people engaging and different type of methodology to actually look. So it's not the same to just measure latency and how much the model takes to answer to a prompt. But if you want to actually measure hallucinations or drift, you need to actually use other models on top to actually know what's happening and why is the drift, what changed actually, why the model is answering differently, and so on. So because as we were talking now, we are still not applying these the observability practices from scratch and by design, we are usually coming late, and that's where the clash actually happens.
Yeah. Why is that though? Is it because people are experimenting, they want to move fast and they don't think about this? Is that what it comes down to?
Yes. And also we've seen this before. I've been in observability for a while, right? Like I remember the days when tracing came out, right? And we had development teams want to use tracing, and you had the operation teams that they owned it, but they didn't want to have the developers use it, right? It was kind of a battle between the two teams, and they were very siloed, right? And they always pointed fingers to each other, and APM and observability started changing that, right? Now we're to the point that, it's common, and it's a best practice to have everyone looking at the same data. So I think the same thing is happening right now with data teams, right? It's the first time they come into the mix, right? Usually they were doing their own thing on the side, and now they're coming into the mix because they're actually serving real clients, not internal clients, real clients with real revenue. And now they feel the same pressure, I think, that all the other teams were feeling in the past, way more actually, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where the problem is. It's the culture and the silos that have been created, and AI is trying to break that down, right?
Yeah,
And it's always going to be hard, and it's always going to take time.
It always comes down to culture
Correct.
at the end of the day, it seems like.
Yeah. The AIOps and SRE community has been building best practices for observability for a long time already. This is coming new. And as we realize now, coming from monitoring to observability to measure experience, the same is happening now with models, as they are not just now developed in silos, and now they are actually providing business value. We still need to figure out how to measure that business value attached to the models.
Yeah. So if I'm a company coming to you now and I'm just getting started with AI, what would you recommend them? Where should they start? What are some of those best practices you've seen?
I want to say something positive though to this whole silo thing, right? And this comes from our side more than it comes from the data side. Every service out there, let's take Bedrock, let's take SageMaker, from the scratch, they are supporting OpenTelemetry, which is great.
Right. Yep.
Right. For the first time, we all agreed that this is the way to go. Right. So that makes our life a lot easier. Right. We didn't have to do anything. We just pointed the data that comes out from Bedrock Agent Core, for example. We just pointed it to our OpenTelemetry collector. Boom, the data is in there. So that's one very big positive that can really accelerate adoption. Right.
Do you get the right data from OpenTelemetry, because that wasn't built for AI use cases necessarily, and for
yes, we do, because the teams that are building the AI services have done a lot of work, and they have embedded observability into their design. I think there was no way they could do it any other way. They had to build it within from scratch, so it works. At least so far, what I've seen, it works. Right. That's the positive part. So what would I say to a company that's experimenting with AI and wants to go into production? I would say don't forget the basics. Like, this is nothing different from any other technology stack. Yes, it's more shiny. Yes, everybody wants to do it. Yes, you're working with amazing companies that are doing amazing things, right? And they blow your mind. But you have to not forget the basics of observability. You know, what are your metrics? What are your KPIs? What are your SLOs? How do you monitor the services around your AI applications? How do you monitor your vector databases? How do you monitor your APIs? If you cover all the basics, then when the AI comes in, then you have a good bedrock, for lack of a better word, to be able to build on that and to be able to build trust. Because that's the biggest problem right now we have with AI, is that we don't trust it enough, right? Because we haven't seen the results. So if you don't trust the AI and you don't trust the underlying infrastructure, it's dead on the water.
Right.
But if you at least trust the underlying infrastructure, then you can build the trust on the AI models. That's what I think is going to happen.
I think people forget that, right? Underneath all of this, it's the same, and it's the same infrastructure as before. It's still, you measure the same things. Maybe your KPIs are a little bit different. You're looking for other issues, but
just different IT pieces. The tech stack may look a bit different, but at the end, it's just databases, applications, code running somewhere. There are a couple of other concerns that I would also recommend to take into account from design, is that, for example, security and compliance. Because also it's not only about trusting the result of like an inference from a model, but also the concerns about how the data is used to train the models. So it's very important to already count on adding role-based access control to the different steps in the workload, to have audit logs for every action that is taken, so properly record the prompts, how the models and agents have been trained to avoid bias, for example. So there are many things that we learned that are important for traditional workloads, and there's no reason why not to apply them in AI.
Yeah, though as you said, the difference is now these models are not deterministic, so that's a bit different when it comes to moving beyond the infrastructure and actually the output of the models and the prompts, and that's a different kind of observability that we're used to, I think, right?
It is different. I think one of the main differences is that for many years, we tried to do UEM well, right? And we made it, like for a traditional stack, to understand from a user perspective what's going all the way to your infrastructure. We can do that, and we can do it pretty well, right? And we can understand the issues, we can understand what the user is doing and how we can react to that, or proactively react to that, or synthetically test it, all of these things, right? With AI models, I think what Martin said, we rely a lot on user feedback to be able to understand what's going on, right? And we can definitely capture that, right? We can definitely create, ways of capturing the feedback. But it's also very difficult because it's user feedback, right? So it's very difficult to determine if a user is interacting with the model, and it's very difficult to determine the quality of the interaction, right? And now, if we go one step further, if this application is serving real clients, that becomes vastly important, because if real clients are not, if the model is not behaving correctly and the real clients are not able to get their questions answered, and they drop, the company means that they're losing credibility or they're losing revenue, right? So I think that's where we still are struggling to understand how we're going to do it. Not that we cannot, but we need to find the correct way of doing it. And we need actually production use cases, which we don't have yet, right?
Okay,
apart from chat boxes, right?
Right. No, that's an interesting point. I think for a lot of enterprises, especially, it's still very early in this.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's like with the ones you're talking to, at what stage are they even at typically?
We actually just had a user group meeting a couple of days ago about this to learn how companies are actually using AI models, and we really saw like a very big variety of use cases. From using, for example, just agents to analyze new code that it's being shipped into production. That code doesn't necessarily need to be a model or an agent, but they use it to kind of test the application risk while as part of the CI/CD pipeline. In other cases, we see a lot of real use, like business use cases for AI/ML, like recommendation engines or chatbots, which is probably now the main use of it. So in our case, for example, we use it for automated root cause analysis. So we feed our models and agents with huge tons of data that it will analyze and try to understand why things are failing for either AI or traditional type of applications. And then another thing that I saw coming in the list in this user group was using AI agents to analyze data while it's being streamed. So you can actually get insights, detect anomalies while the telemetry data is flowing.
Okay.
And that's especially important when you are capturing, data in a high granularity, or so you really don't want to wait until all the data is actually stored to start analyzing. So that was a very interesting use cases that we learned in the last few days.
Yeah. Are you finding that as you're talking about these use cases, that these companies are often still trying to find ways to just use agents, use LLMs for the sake of it, just to, instead of, really going after, maybe using other techniques?
I've seen both. Like literally yesterday, we were talking to one of our biggest customers now, and a very, very famous customer, that they're doing extremely innovative and extremely difficult things, right, with their products, right? And that's exactly what they told us. We don't want to use AI for the sake of AI. We're still trying to figure out, because their brand is very rooted to their culture, right? It's handmade products, very, they take pride in it, right? And they don't want to change anything until they figure out exactly how AI can help them, right? They don't want to mess around with their brand. So yes, you see those type of companies that they don't want to touch it yet. And then you see companies that are doing it for the sake of publicity, I think, right?
No, for sure, that's happening.
Yeah, for the sake of just being in the mix of the AI kind of wave. But what also is interesting here, being at the reInvent, we had very useful conversations also with AWS, right? That are basically creating practices to scale the usage of agents, for example, in companies. Even AWS does not know fully how it's going to work in production, right?
Yes.
And they need to build that. They need to build the thought leadership to be able to serve their customers. If AWS doesn't do it, who's going to do it, right? They have the technology, they have the expertise. So I think we're seeing for 2026, I think there's going to be a big push for AI to go to production, and it's going to be messy, right? A lot. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of news around AI failing in a lot of use cases, but we're going to come out of it, I think, stronger.
And you mentioned trust earlier on too, right? AWS has done some things here with bedrock agent core and trust there. I forget the policy, I think is the name of the
Yes,
feature,
correct.
which is mathematically verifiable that it's true, right? Things like that I think are really important going forward as well to get that trust.
Yeah, completely. That's especially important, I think, with the AI/ML models that they are actually able to process huge amount of data with many different sources, and there is still the feeling that they are very opaque and black boxes. So having, as part of the technology by design, providing these tools, I think it's great for adoption. And as we were saying, there's usually the hype of use cases. Then we will eventually reach to a plateau. I have the feeling that with AI workloads, it will be probably faster than with other technologies, also because of the high cost association to run them. So it's not as cheap as just try it out, because then you need GPUs, TPUs, something that it's much more expensive. So my feeling or prediction is that the plateau will reach earlier or faster than with probably other emerging technologies.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, when it comes to kind of AI ops and those ideas, like in traditional quotation mark observability, we've got APM, application performance management. We got like all these disciplines at this point. Is that crystallizing around AI as well, you think, or not yet?
Not
Is it
yet.
too early?
No, it's too early. As I said, okay, how do we monitor the front end, let's say, of AI applications, right? I don't think we have a perfect answer for that right away. But one good thing that's happening on the AI ops in general, not the AI, the AI ops in general is...
Those terms are still also
Yeah.
kind of vague, right? I
Yeah,
was thinking
exactly.
about that as I was saying it.
Again, for lack of a better term, right? One good thing that's going on that I see is that a lot of the practices around how we use AI, what is useful for, is coming straight from use cases on the development, for example, processes, on the operation processes, right? How can I embed my AI into my IDs, right? How can I embed my AI into doing intelligent remediation, investigation? So I think internally we are experimenting a lot with that, and it's slowly growing, and we're building trust in it. And I think that whole, like, if those teams are able to trust it, I think that will propagate also to the more, let's say, client-facing workloads, right? Or client-facing use cases, actually, not workloads. So I think that's another good thing that's going on, that it has started from, let's say, the back office of the companies, right? And now, I mean, that's the right way to do it, actually. Because I've seen a lot of clients as well, for the chatbot example, that they want to do something really quickly with AI, build a chatbox, but the teams are not ready behind the scenes to, support this. They don't know how to monitor it. They don't know how to run it.
Secure
it. It ends up costing them a fortune because they don't know how to put guardrails around it. So instead of actually, building brand through that, they're actually damaging the brand and damaging the company itself. So I think we have examples of that, and now we're starting to understand that, we need to think thoroughly before we start doing any customer-facing applications using AI.
How much of that are you doing internally as well? You mentioned kind of your own back end
Yeah,
internally.
sure.
Right. So it's not just because of the hype, but we do understand that as the observability needs mature a long time, and doing one step back, we also see this happening in the past, for example, with the Kubernetes adoption or cloud adoption. So we start using technologies while we master them. So of course, there are a lot of steps where we need to learn. Same happens with AI, and we internally in our product, we are, for example, using AI for, as I was saying before, automated root cause analysis, or, for example, incident summarization. The idea is that, in one hand, we completely cover a new need that it was not covered before, because we didn't have these tools yet, like, for example, to do automated root cause analysis. But then other use cases that feel simpler, but they actually provide a lot of value, like summarization of incidents. Most likely, when there is an incident, you're going to be sharing all the troubleshooting and debugging with other colleagues from different disciplines, for example. And you will need to share effectively with them about what is happening, what step did you take so far, or what step did the AI model took so far to either understand or remediate. So that collaboration can also be made easier using models or generative AI. There is one other thing is, for example, closing the gap between the observability and telemetry data with business user personas that they don't necessarily understand the same language, which is something that...
It's another cultural issue
Yeah,
that
exactly.
comes up all the time. Yeah.
And this is yet another case where very simply AI can help, because it can provide a summary of what's happening with a business perspective, something that anyone can understand. And this way we can also kind of democratize the use of observability and telemetry.
Translate engineer to MBA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know if we've cracked that though, because we've been trying to do, let's say, business observability for a while. Yes, this is a good step forward, but it's still two different worlds, and it's very difficult to merge them, right?
Yeah. What would that ideal scenario look like for you?
From a business perspective or from an operational perspective?
Both maybe,
So
but business. I think,
yeah. If I was a CEO, I would love to get a report every morning in plain English of this is what failed, this is the manager that told me what's failing, this is how we fixed it. You don't need to go into details. Just tell me it took 5 seconds. This is how much revenue we lost. So I need to know what's going on and how much revenue we lost. And this is how quickly we were able to fix it. And this is how many customers were impacted, and that everything is working fine. If I have a report like that, in front of me,
especially the last line.
Of course, yeah. Or I could flip it. I would start with that. Like everything is working fine. I would start with that, yeah. And then if I had this in front of me, and also if it could be a little bit of I say interactive, where I can click, I can send a message to my CTO. Okay, I know what's going on. I know you guys fixed it. Thank you for everything. How can we, for example, not have an issue next time? I think that's enough for a CEO to work on, right? They don't need anything more than that.
Ideally,
ideally, but yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily only related to observability, but transformations are probably still happening, and we are still very used to whenever we
when
are...
you say transformation, you mean like digital transformation?
For example, yeah, we went through that already, but so we introduced the concept of navigation, right? So whenever we are in front of a digital product, we are used to have either a left or top navigation panel, so we expect to see an icon somewhere, and thinking about being more used to just use natural language for whatever I want to do, it's probably something that we're still not doing enough. And I think this will really open up the gate for wider adoption also for AI ML, because it will just help us not necessarily learn and completely reduce or completely eliminate the learning curve for products, because we just can ask questions in our language.
That's another ideal scenario, right? Which there we're a little bit closer, I think, than in some other areas where between RAG and all these techniques, we have the ability now to create some of that. I think it's the speech to speech. Like if you get to the spoken word, maybe it's still a bit harder to do that, right? The models aren't quite there yet. But
Correct.
Where do you see where's the low-hanging fruit right now, you think? Where the first kind of easiest use cases where you can go with, especially around observability? Like if I want to get started, something simple to get first.
Break the silos between data and the rest of the organization and IT. That's the first thing you need to do. We've seen it in the past. It took a long time to fix that problem. If you're able to fix it now, you're going to have a way higher success percentage of your applications using AI to succeed, right?
How do I break those silos, though? Do I get a data lake somewhere and put it all in there? Or what does that look like to you?
It looks like you need to use tools that are able to show you both worlds as much as possible, right? Observability tools are useful. Tools that are sitting on top of observability are also useful, right? To determine if an issue happened and how it was remediated, to give you more trust. Include your data people into the conversation. Show them, I'm sure they understand, but show them how it looks in production. Right? Don't keep them siloed on one side.
You say that you're sure they do, but often I don't think they do, right?
Because
they are siloed
correct.
themselves.
Yeah. Of course, they're experts in their field, and it's difficult to understand what's going on in some other discipline, right? But those teams need to come together as soon as possible. That's where I would start. Like, physically even a lot of times we had data teams on one side and bring them to the same room. They need to understand that if they don't work hand in hand, this is going to fail. There's no way around it because the data is so massive and the need for resources is massive for these applications to work. That if you don't do it the right way, it's going to cost you a lot pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So that's the low-hanging fruit for me. That we need to break those silos as soon as possible, and we know how because we've done it. We've done it in the past.
Right,
So we need to learn from our past and do it again.
Martin, any low-hanging fruit for you?
Yeah, so wearing again the product management hat here, I think that there's no one single answer that works for every type of industry or team. So depending on your vertical, you will probably find different ways to adopt it. But the most important thing is try to find the right business value for it. So if you want your leadership to buy in and give you the resources to apply generative AI models or agents in your application, it needs to be something that will provide business value eventually.
Yeah.
So try to find that. It's not maybe easy or straightforward, but talk with your users, talk what they are expecting, what problems are still unresolved, where generative AI can be a good solution for, and then I'm sure that will yield much better results than just trying wild about things. But then it depends a lot on your market, your vertical, and your teams.
Sure. Yeah, it's always the case, right? It's a wide open field. Now it's coming to an end. What do you wish I would have asked you? Anything we're missing?
More?
Any topics we haven't covered yet that I may not even be aware of when it comes to observability and AI?
To observability?
Like we've covered it all, which
I
is
think
great,
observability is massive in a sense, right? And also observability vendors and observability experts. We're a very small group. Like I see the same people over and over moving around companies. I've done it. Martin has done it, right? So it's a small community, and it's difficult for newcomers to understand what's going on in observability, right? One good question would be like, what would you need to go into this field, right?
Yeah.
What new skills are we looking at in the observability field?
Or will you just need an AI agent and not learn the skills?
Yeah, AI agents. We saw AWS launching the AI SRE agent, right? Okay, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what are the new skills that somebody like us is gonna have in 5 years. A new PM that will come into this. How is it gonna look like, right? A person who sells our solutions. What do they need to understand better to be able to sell it? Because it's a very technical, selling process. So those are the type of things that I'm thinking as I grow into my career. How we can bring people in, and what skills we need to learn.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of fields right now.
Of course.
I think where everybody needs to figure out how do we use these tools.
Yeah.
Right. So there's one topic related to AI in general that I also try to keep in mind because it's a concern for many folks in the industry. It's about if AI will actually replace us eventually in some roles, right? And this is one of the reasons also probably why the adoption of AI fails is because we have that mindset. So we need to look at AI as just another resource or tool that can improve our performance and can yield better results, but it will very likely not actually replace humans on top. So it's just something else that we can use to increase productivity, but not necessarily will replace humans.
You have the optimistic view there compared to some other folks that I talked to.
I am.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree, but
the augmentation kind of
correct
theory.
But on the other hand, having been in observability for a while, because of the criticality of observability in many cases, right? Imagine if you're monitoring a healthcare application. Are you going to ever leave that on the hands of AI?
Right.
Exactly.
There's no way.
Yeah.
For example, if you're monitoring, air traffic controls or anything like that, there's no way we're going to leave everything to AI. Right.
Until we trust it.
Until we trust it, which I don't know how long it's going to take us to get to that point. But I don't see any pilots losing their jobs anytime soon, right?
It's true. But you might go from 2 pilots to 1 pilot.
But there's still a human element.
Yeah.
There's still a human element in there. I think that's not going to change anytime soon, because humans, we can still think in many, many layers and have abstraction in many, many layers. And I don't know, I'm sure, AI researchers know more than me on this, but I'm not sure how AI can quickly come to that level of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Until I say it,
That's on that happy note. Like, we shall wait for the AGI overlords to take our jobs.
Yes, we've seen the movie, so it's scary.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Kind of scary.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you
Really
so much for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
It was fun.
This is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on all the major social media platforms. You can always find us at thenewstack.io. We hope to see you soon.